On the surface level, Overwatch is a pretty simple game. A game where you move around, enjoy the amazing scenery of some of the most beautiful maps the game has to offer, hit the greedy with your friends, and occasionally you can indulge yourself in... committing some crimes. But eliminating the enemy heroes, or, well, sometimes even your teammates, is not the only bad thing you can do in Overwatch. In fact, you're probably breaking way more laws than you realize. From harmless little crimes that nobody even cares about, to the more serious and downright devious ones that make you wonder if this game is really as innocent and fun as it seems. So today, I am setting out to answer one simple question. How many laws can you actually break in Overwatch? But first, let's set some ground rules for what actually counts as a crime. Anything that could land you with a fine or jail time is on the list. Of course, laws vary from country to country, but since most of you who watch me are from America, we'll be using American laws, with some exceptions. For each crime committed, I'll be showing punishment right here at the top right corner of the screen. So now you know the rules, and so do I. Now let's do some fun stuff. The first and most common crime that every single Overwatch hero commits actually happens the moment you spawn on the map. So when you appear on the map, you automatically have a weapon of some sort equipped in your hands, which is an illegal possession of firearms and deadly weapons. Now this one's a little tricky, because not everything our heroes hold technically qualifies as a firearm. Obviously, a huge Glock that Mercy holds is clearly a weapon that is designed to cause harm to other people. Or this menacing looking shotgun of Junker Queen. But with some other heroes, we enter a bit of a grey area for what is considered a firearm. With heroes like Reinhardt, Sigma, Venture and some others. While a huge drill and a pair of small balls can cause some sort of harm to others, they are not inherently designed to injure other people, but instead used for some other purposes.
Oh, moons!
So when you do select any of these heroes, you're not actually breaking any laws. That is, unless you decide to harm somebody. But for the rest of the heroes who do carry a visible firearm, we can also add unlawful discharge of a firearm. And if you end up fatally shooting somebody, then... yeah. And can you tell me what happens when you shoot or reload a weapon? You litter the floor. The biggest offender here obviously being every tank's favorite DPS hero, the Reaper guy. And while it might not be a huge problem on some of the maps like Eichenwald or Junkertown, like come on, who cares if you litter on Junkertown? The entire place is a junkyard. There's even a word junk in the name. No wonder why nobody ever votes for this map. But for the places like Midtown, Oasis or any city-based map, you'll probably have to pay some sort of a fine. Even inside of this train on Midtown, we can see a sign that prohibits littering. And while we're inside of this train, let's break some more rules. Okay, so I don't think there's a single hero who can visibly pull up a phone and take a selfie, except for this diva highlight intro, but unfortunately, she's outside of the train, so that doesn't really count. So I guess we'll have to be a bit more creative with it. Also, since we're on New York map, it is apparently illegal to sleep on benches in some places, so... Did you know that by playing your favorite cowboy hero, you're not only doing humanity a favor by not locking in Widowmaker, thank you for that, but also your character is smoking hot cigars. On some maps, you spawn in public places, be it a restaurant or an airport, which means you automatically break a no smoking rule. In fact, you commit 2 more crimes, another for gun possession and another for looking handsome. But not only that, while walking around the city, you most likely pass through areas that are also considered smoking free, which will rake in more and more fines, if you think about it. So the only way you can prevent yourself from going bankrupt is to use a skin that replaces his cigar with something more appropriate. But that is not the last horrible thing Cassidy can do by merely existing and minding his own business. He can also use the forbidden emote that will grant him yet another fine. Spitting. Be it spitting on the road or, well, on somebody. Okay, at this point we have to agree that he is the main villain in this whole universe. When you're walking around the beautiful cities of Paraiso, Numbani, or any wonderful place that we all like, we always do this one seemingly harmless little ritual. And when I say we all, I do in fact mean all of us. Because there's not a single person who has not committed this awful crime. Destroying railings. Technically, some of them are called balustrade, but it's basically the same thing. But sometimes it is just not enough to destroy these railings to satisfy our needs. We have to destroy other types of property. And more. And more. But wait, did you notice something? Let's rewind for a second. Did you spot anything weird? Yep, We just crossed the road outside of a designated crosswalk. Awful. I believe we're all familiar with the infamous Oasis shortcut, the highway road, which some of us dare to take a gamble on if we don't feel like going through the main pathway and exposing our presence to the enemy team. So whenever you dare to step on this road, you're not only risking your own life, but also the driver's as well. Although in this case, the driver couldn't care less. So if you're going to do it, you'd better not mess it up.
Hi there!
And since we're talking about cars, let's take a look at these cones, which you may not even know about if you're playing on lower settings. But either way, they always end up being accidentally displaced due to all the shooting we have to do, which is not a good thing to do, but we do it anyway. Oh, wait a second. This is a nice looking car. What do you guys think? I think it's great. Oh, by the way, there's somebody behind you. Please turn around. I was just kidding there. Gotcha. During my research, I realized something strange. There are almost zero private bedrooms or personal chambers in Overwatch. Most of the time, you can enter the lobby of an apartment complex, but never the actual apartments. And no, we're not counting Diva's room on Busan since we literally spawned there by default. And if anyone dares to bring up the mattresses on Junkertown, I swear to God, I'm going to explode. So the only two places that I found are this weird hotel room on Coliseo, which for some weird reason is accessed via this clothing store, and also this mansion on Volskaya Industries. So why am I saying this? Well, because walking into either of these spots will technically be trespassing, even if the doors are wide open. And if we try borrowing something from one of these rooms, like let's say this portrait, which by the way took me an incredible amount of effort to get outside of the mansion, then congratulations, we just committed a burglary. But that is not the only stealing related crime that we can do, by the way. If we go on Dorado, you might already be familiar with some lore behind the map, and I'm talking about the Roadhog and Junkrat part of it. So if you want to follow in their footsteps, all you need to do is yoink one of the gold bars from the bank. And trust me, just like with the Volskaya portrait, I had to fight way too hard to drag that thing outside. There we go, we just committed a bank robbery. But this pales in comparison with what I'm about to do on Numbani. Let us go and explore this little clothing store. As we can see, it is full of various clothing, with no people looking after them. So how bad would it be if somebody were to inconspicuously shoplift everything? Well, there goes 20 minutes of my life. Thank goodness Moira is like a vacuum cleaner and leaf blower 2 in 1, else this would have taken me a lot longer. But you know what? Now I feel bad for just taking one gold bar from the bank. How about we do all of them? Yeah, before any one of you ask, I do have a bit of a spare time on my hands. Okay, this might be a hot take, but I actually like Atlas. But there's just one thing I do not understand. Why did people leave their luggage unattended all over the station? What happens if there is some guy who is out there collecting as many crimes as he possibly can? Not saying I will do that, but okay, so yeah, don't leave your bags unattended, folks. Also, I'm not sure if this counts, but since Echo is able to copy somebody, will this technically count as an identity fraud? I don't know. I'm gonna let you all decide on this one. Okay, so far, we've covered crimes that most heroes can commit. But what about laws that are exclusive to certain heroes? If you're a Moira enjoyer, I have some bad news. Honestly, just playing Moira should already count as a crime. You're committing a real-life crime and you should stop playing this. Anyway, according to the lore, Moira conducts experiments on living beings. And in-game, she literally drains the life out of her enemies to fuel herself. Which means every time you hold right-click, you're technically committing a crime against humanity. Congratulations. There are times when you're just minding your own business and then out of nowhere you get pulled by a wife lever. That's kidnapping. And there are times where you get hooked by enemy Roadhog. That's kidnapping. And there's also a situation where you get imprisoned by a heavy weapons guy inside his cage. And you know what that is? You guessed it. Kidnapping. But do you know what is potentially worse than this? If you are an old man who has to rely on his 2 old legs to be able to run, it won't be fun to have somebody take your ability to run. Now will it? You might as well have your entire body shut down. Whenever Venture used their ultimate, they used the following voice line.
Excavation initiation!
It sounds fun and silly until you realize that Venture is actually doing something that is not allowed without permission. And speaking of permissions... Okay, do I have to elaborate on this one? No? Well, I also don't think I have to elaborate on this one either.
Nerf this.
Moving on to our favorite firebending heroes. At first, I thought you couldn't commit arson in Overwatch. I tested everything. Haystacks, trees, grass, nothing worked. But then I realized arson doesn't have to be environmental. It can be personal property as well. And in Overwatch, that means deployables. Sometimes I wish we had an actual fire hero, by the way. And as it turns out, abilities that create hazardous zones, like Torbjorn's Shoom or Wrecking Ball's Mines, could also fall under reckless endangerment. Oh, and I almost forgot about Widowmaker. Now, you might be thinking, surely these were the worst crimes Overwatch has to offer, right? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we still got a couple of far more severe offenses to cover. We all know that Winston and Hammond are both animals. So what can go wrong if we were to put them next to one of the most evil characters Overwatch has to offer? Unbelievable, Juno. How could you do that to them? But it is not as evil as going to a museum and standing next to the exhibition just to pull out a snacky and start munching in front of it. Speaking of museums, apparently being bare-chested in Rome while you are around historic and tourist areas is considered to be against the law there. Sorry, Mauga. Now let us look at the total amount of possible crimes that you can commit in Overwatch. That is sure is a lot. If there are any crimes that I missed, then let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I shall not see you in the next one. Just kidding.